Welcome to Library Out Loud. I'm Erin Dodge, Communications Specialist with SCLD. Today's episode, Librarians Answer Your Questions. Librarians Rachel and Tammy, both early learning youth librarians, answer, how can I get my child ready for kindergarten? You're going to want to stick around. Hello, Rachel and Tammy. Thank you for being on today's episode of Library Out Loud. We're doing Librarians Answer. And today's question is, how can I get my child ready for kindergarten? And you guys have so much knowledge about this, you probably could do multiple hour-long workshops on it. But for the podcast, we can only do so much. So what's one thing that parents and caregivers can focus on to get a child ready for kindergarten?
Well, I think first it could be good just to kind of do an overview of what kindergarten readiness looks like. I think a lot of parents aren't even really sure what they're aiming for. So basically, there are different areas of development that they are looking for kids to be at a certain level when they enter kindergarten. One might be looking at physically. Are they physically able to zip up their own coat and take their own coat off? That's a really important one for kindergarten teachers. As you can imagine, the time it would take to get every single kid in and out of their coat every time you do recess is a lot. Can they open their lunch bag? We've heard about kids who their first day of school, they can't eat because they can't get their bag open.
Oh, no.
Do they have the fine motor skills to use scissors or, go beyond scribbling and actually be kind of intentionally making marks on the page? Do they have the social emotional skills for kindergarten? So this might look like, are they able to follow directions? How do they handle it when something doesn't go their way?
Right.
And can they wait their turn? That's a big one for school also. And then, of course, there's the educational skills that a lot of people think about, which can include math and cognitive, language, and literacy. So I'm not just randomly picking these. Washington State has what they call WA Kids. And most schools at this point are doing a WA Kids assessment when kids are about to enter kindergarten. And those are the areas that they're looking at to see how kids are coming in, whether they're ready or not. And of course, there's lots of different ways people can work on these skills with the kids in their lives. But today we decided to really focus on reading as one of the ways you can help get your kid ready for kindergarten. Obviously, as librarians, reading is our favorite one to focus on.
Of course, that makes sense.
But it also works on every single one of those. They call them domains. So areas are domains, which some people wouldn't necessarily intuitively think that reading is going to work on physical skills.
Right.
But when you think about it, when they're handling a book, they're working on motor skills. When they get to turning a page, now you're working on fine motor skills. There's also all sorts of fun books out there now that prompt kids to, trace with their finger a line in the book or to pull a tab or lift a flap. So all of those things are actually working on physical skills.
Nice.
And then there's also some that prompt them to do large gross motor movement. We use those a lot in story time to get kids up and moving.
And dancing or wiggling your hands or
waving,
something.
clapping, stomping, jumping, all of those things. Nice. For social emotional, books are a great way to help kids learn how to identify and name emotions. The better you're able to name an emotion, then it's easier for kids then to learn how to handle that emotion.
That makes sense.
And of course, you always want to work on emotions when kids aren't feeling them in a big way. So books are a great way to kind of facilitate that conversation and talk with your kid. Have you felt that way? What would you do? So they are great for social emotional skills. Math and books work together far more than people think. And it doesn't just have to be a counting book.
Okay.
You can count anything that's on a page. You can talk about more or less. You can talk about distance and measurement, like, oh, look how high up that kid is.
Right.
Things like that. And then cognitive, that one is a little easier to understand because they are just naturally developing cognitive skills when they listen to books. So they're practicing paying attention. They're working on visual and auditory processing. They're organizing information. That's what makes it so they might be able to, predict what's going to happen next, that kind of thing. And also some books will incorporate instructions, like following instructions, which is a good cognitive skill. And of course, the ones we mostly think about, which is language and literacy skills. So some people are a little confused that those are two different skills. So just really briefly, generally language skills are talking about oral skills.
Okay.
Literacy skills are once kids are old enough to start to make the connection between written word and oral word and how that works together.
Okay.
So that's very simplified, but just an idea of why they kind of break those down into two different things. So beyond the fact that reading helps develop all these skills and helps get your kid ready for kindergarten, there's other reasons we chose to focus on reading.
Sure.
Reading is a great way to bond with your child, which is really important. Kids learn best when they feel loved and safe and connected. Reading and talking also go hand in hand, and there's all sorts of studies about the importance of talking with kids. That's how they learn how communication works.
Yes.
And then reading can easily be incorporated into your everyday routine. So it's not something that's kind of beyond our ability to interact with our kids in that way. And of course, we think reading is and should always be fun. So I am going to let Tammy talk a little bit more about why we chose reading and how to make sure reading works well for you and your kid.
Thanks, Rachel. That's some great information, a great overview. One of my favorite quotes about reading aloud is from Australian children's author Mem Fox. She says, "When I say to a parent, read to a child, I don't want to make it sound like medicine. I want it to sound like chocolate."
Oh, wow.
So we want this reading aloud to be something that the adult enjoys as well as the child. Like Rachel said, it's a great time for bonding. So parents' attitude going into that is also going to make a big difference.
Right.
So you want it to be a meaningful part of your day, part of your routine, something you look forward to.
Right.
Especially in this busy, crazy, fast-paced world, it's nice to know that you're going to have some time to slow down.
Right.
Have some one-on-one time or a parent with a few children time where they can really spend that time together, something that you can both look forward to. One important aspect to remember when reading aloud with children is to slow down.
Yeah.
So it's not a race to see how fast we can get through this book or if we can make it through our 3 books before bedtime the fastest. But really stop and enjoy that time. Look at and talk about the illustrations in the book. Ask your child those open-ended questions where they can't answer just by pointing at a picture or by saying yes or no.
I see.
But things that will help them use their vocabulary and their verbal skills. So older children, you can ask, what do you think is going to happen in the story next?
Right.
Why do you think the person's doing that?
Oh.
What are they feeling?
Okay.
When have you felt that way?
Wow.
So really kind of trying to connect it to the child as well. And it's interesting to think about, but you can even ask open-ended questions to very young children who can't talk. So they can't reply with actual words.
Okay.
But it does teach them the importance of a back and forth conversation.
Okay.
So an example, you're reading a book about farm animals. You can say, here's a duck. What does a duck say? And then you're going to pause. Even though the baby is not going to respond, it might try to do a little, cooing or knowing that it's my turn to talk.
Yes.
And then you'll answer, quack, quack.
Oh, that's that back and forth.
Yes.
You're talking about that social, emotional, and then language. And there's, that's great.
Yes. And then you can ask them, can you quack?
Okay.
And wait. Quack, quack. So very fun, interactive. It's not about reading the words on the page necessarily. It's really about that interaction.
Okay.
And then another important thing is to read with expression.
Okay.
I used to think that meant I need to use different voices and all that kind of stuff. It really doesn't. It really means to read the text the way it's written. So if the text says, the children tiptoed down the stairs, read it like that,
Okay.
slow and quiet.
Okay.
The children tiptoed down the stairs.
Yes.
So it gives a nice mood to the story as well.
Nice.
Let children pick books that they are interested in. That's one of the best ways to make sure that you can get some reading aloud in. A few years ago, this works even for younger babies.
Okay.
A few years ago, we had a dad come in with his infant son in a car carrier.
Okay.
He would pick up a board book and hold it up for the baby to see. If the baby's eyes got big or a smile, they're like, "Oh, we'll take that one home." Pick up another book. He doesn't do anything. "Oh, we'll choose a different book." So starting even as a baby, having that choice. Children, of course, are going to have their favorite books.
Yes.
And even though it can be difficult for us as adults to reread the same book over and over and over, repetition is so important for children and young learners.
So it's good to keep in mind when you're bored of the book.
Yes.
They want to hear it again.
Yes.
Okay.
So still read it, and because that's really going to cement learning in their brain.
Okay.
That is how they learn, by repetition. Sometimes, I'm sick of this book. You choose a book, and then I will choose a new book. And then that keeps it fresh and exciting.
Okay.
And then a child might find a new favorite book.
Right.
Which we're always excited for.
And taking turns was one of the things.
Yes,
so that's you choose a book, then I'll choose a book.
Yes.
That back and forth. That's great.
Definitely. Yep.
These are brilliant.
Keep books in a place where the children can access them. Even when we're not actively reading aloud to them, they can gain a lot from just holding the book, turning the pages. They're figuring out how books work.
Right.
They understand that they're important, that we can learn from them, they're enjoyable, and help them really learn to love reading.
Well, and I have a friend who told me, they read a lot. And so her daughter will sometimes pull a book out and start to read to her stuffed animals.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that pretend, and she might not actually she'll know the story. She might not be actually reading the words that she might not know exactly, but she's got the story.
Yes.
And so she's practicing all those skills.
Yes. All those verbal skills is wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of our favorite things is when parents tell us that their kids play story time at home.
Yes, we love.
And that their kid has to be Miss Rachel or Miss Tammy, and they have to be the kid while they get to hear stories. That's one of my favorite things.
Yes.
So the parent's the kid in that point.
Yes.
Yep. And they'll even sing our same songs.
Oh,
and
I love it.
Kind of do our same mannerisms. So.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, so it's fun. So we always want to keep this reading experience positive. If your child is just not having it today, don't force it.
Okay.
Keep it a fun, upbeat time. For toddlers, a great time to read aloud is nap time or bedtime when they need to be slowing down.
Right.
During the day, you may not ever get them to sit down to hear a book, and that's okay. So we can try different books, different times. And also never feel like you have to read every word on every page or even finish a book. Sometimes it just doesn't happen, and that's okay.
Sure.
Just as long as we keep it positive. So I did want to share a couple of resources that we have at the library. If you want to dig in deeper about reading aloud, the importance of it, how to do it, and some great bibliography of different books that you could read. So the first one here is the classic Jim Trelease's Read Aloud Handbook. It's been in print since 1982.
Wow, okay.
And we are on this is the 7th edition, and an 8th edition has come out. So they continue to update it with new books, new research, especially new digital screen time and those kinds of things.
All right. And it does say, I'm just reading it includes a giant treasury of great read aloud books. So this is what they're updating.
Yes.
Each edition is more current.
More current books as well as new research as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. We also have a book. This is by a local author. She's also a podcaster at the Read Aloud Revival, Sarah McKenzie. And she has published this book, The Read Aloud Family.
Okay.
Making meaningful and lasting connections with your kids.
Okay.
So,
nice.
One of my favorite books. And then the last one I'm going to share is How to Raise a Reader. This is by Pamela Paul and Maria Russo, who were editors of the New York Times Book Review.
Okay.
So they have great information and, again, a great list of books to share.
Nice. Well, those sound really helpful. And then I see you have other books here. And so they don't look like adult books. So do you have books for different ages? Some suggestions? Is that what you brought today?
Yes, we sure do.
Okay.
We're super
Where do we want to
excited.
start?
Should we start with babies?
Yeah, let's start with babies. Yes.
Okay.
And babies start at newborn, right?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a couple things that you want to look at for books for babies. You want the pictures to be simple and bold and bright. When they're really, really newborn, they have books that are specifically just black and white or black, white, and red. And that's based on the science behind the
vision
at those ages. And so this one is, a little bit older than newborn.
Okay.
What I love about this one is it's very interactive. We were talking about how physical development comes from handling the book. So they have lots of books now that have flaps, which prompts them to bring the flap down with their hands and also turning the pages. It also can help engage them. And this one is kind of based off of the game Peekaboo.
Okay.
So little giraffe, where are you? Here I am, where are you? And then there's a mirror, so baby can find themselves.
There you are.
And it says, there you are.
Can we back up? What was the title of this one?
Sorry. Little Lion, Where Are You?
Little Lion, Where Are You? Great.
Yes. Yeah. So there are mirrors on every single page behind each animal.
And that's that repetition.
Yes, you're catching on. Yeah, the repetition. And like I said, the familiarity of Peekaboo as a game will help kind of draw them in. There is actually even on the back of this book a link. They've put this book to song. So you could listen to the song while you look at it or learn the song and sing it yourself. But just really cute, simple, and of course, flaps and mirrors are always a win for babies. So this one is called Tummy Time.
Okay.
And what I like about this one is that it's real photos.
Oh, okay.
For little ones, they make connections between real life and books much easier when they are realistic photos. So for example, they're going to see this baby in a hat and it looks really realistic. So they might actually start to make the connection between this hat and the hat that they wear on their own head. Whereas if it was in cartoonish style illustration, they don't make that connection quite as easily.
Okay.
This one is very simple words, very short. They love to look at other babies when they're littler. I like that there's a lot of diversity in how these babies appear. It's very important for kids from a very young age to see both themselves in books and see others in books.
And then baby plays, there's different things that they're playing with, so that they might want to try to play with new things maybe.
Yeah. And they might even recognize how it looks similar to their toys. And then, of course, you can prompt your baby later. You might see if your baby can wave.
Nice.
Or smile.
Oh, yeah.
So, very sweet book with lots of cute pictures of real babies.
Having tummy time.
Having tummy time. Yes.
I also have a couple of books for babies. Rachel mentioned these high contrast books, and this is one of them. This is called Reading Time. And we see black and bright colors. This is an interesting book because it opens up like this and we see a full rainbow. Mirror, another great thing. But when we get into the book part of it, very simple illustrations, big letters at the top.
Nice.
Some things parents could read, but not necessarily have to read.
I see. I see a cat, it says.
Yes. But, you can talk about, do we have a cat at home? Our kitty is Tom. What color is he? He's black. This kitty is white.
Sure.
Yeah. So goes through. The other great thing, we have several books like this that are those high contrast books that actually open up like this.
Wow.
And you set it down while your baby's on their tummy and they have something fun to look at on their tummy time while they're seeing letters, words, pictures together.
I love how that books are being made. now
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Speaking of different ways books are being made, we have a book. This is Baby Peekaboo, but I really wanted to show that these are books called Indestructibles.
Oh.
And so they say they're chew proof, rip proof. So these are books that babies can actually hold and enjoy and play with.
Okay, because I think of the board books as being indestructible, but they're not.
They're not, especially when babies are putting things in their mouths.
Are teething, yes.
Yes, and actually when they're about 6 months old, the way they learn the most is orally.
Okay.
They need to put things in their mouth to figure things out.
Okay.
And so this is a book that you can have out, let the baby play with. Books are fun and enjoyable. They learn to turn the pages and so forth.
Right.
But you don't have to worry about it being destroyed.
Nice.
So, very fun. Yep.
Wow. A lot has changed since I had little ones.
Yes.
Yes, if you go through our board book collection, you will be amazed at all the different types of books and things they've incorporated. There's wheels on them that can spin. There's I have so many different holes that you can peek through. They've really gotten creative and made them like toys, which is great.
Yep, because we want the children to interact with them as much as we
can. That physical development with the fine motor skills and all of that. Yeah. Nice.
All right, so we'll move on to toddlers and give you a couple ideas. We were talking about how you want to make sure reading is fun, and when they're done, you don't keep going because we want it to be fun.
Right.
But sometimes you can help them to really get into it and want to read a little bit longer if you make it very, very interactive.
Okay.
So this will sound familiar to everybody if you're happy and you know it.
Great.
But this is one where you can read it and they don't have to sit down at all. In fact, they probably won't.
Okay.
So it's the basic song if you're happy and you know it, and then it prompts them to do all sorts of different things like clap your hands and stamp your feet, which are kind of traditional. But then you get to the lion who's roaring out loud.
Fun.
So then they get to make noise or spin around.
Oh, wow.
Go kiss, kiss.
Oh, that's so cute.
All sorts of different things.
I love all the illustrations, too.
Yes, they're really bright, fun illustrations.
And they're big. They're detailed, but they're not complicated.
Yes, that's one thing for toddlers is you want a little less detail than you might use for a preschooler. The other nice thing about this one is, as Tammy said, you don't always have to read every page.
Sure.
This is a book where it's really easy to skip pages because there isn't a plot that works the whole way through. They kind of each stand on their own. So if they're getting tired, it's really easy to skip some pages and then go towards the end.
Yeah.
This was actually one of my daughter's favorite books. We had a board book version of it, and I have kept it because it is in pieces. And it just makes me smile every time I see it because she has handled and loved this thing so much that it's hardly
a book anymore.
Hardly a book anymore. Yeah. So the other good thing to know is Jane Cabrera has put out a whole bunch of books that are great for toddlers. Okay. So if you're kind of not sure where to start when you're browsing, that's definitely an author to check out. And a lot of hers are song-based.
Fun.
And kids are definitely drawn to music. So anytime you can find books with songs in it, that's usually going to help draw them in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do one. Yeah, I'll do one more and then you can go. So this is a newer one called Bear Has a Belly. This author has a couple new ones out, and I like all of them.
Okay. And this one is also real pictures?
Yes.
Okay.
This one goes back to the real pictures. Toddlers are still really into that as well as babies.
Absolutely.
This one, there's some good repetition. Rabbit has ears, long floppy ears. Rabbit has ears. I do too.
Oh,
so then, of course, they get to find their ears and work on body parts. I've actually read this one with babies also. These aren't distinct. So just because we are covering it for toddlers. And then in the repetition, owl has eyes, big round eyes. Owl has eyes. I do too.
Okay.
So you can even prompt them to say, I do too with you. You can point to it when you get to I do too. That'll help them start to make the connection between the words you're saying and the words on the page.
Right.
So that's one of the great things about repeating phrases. Once again, there's some good diversity in this book. I love that there's a kid with glasses, obviously all different kinds of skin tones and hairstyles.
And animals.
And animals are always a big draw. You can make animal noises with this book.
Oh, fun.
One fun thing about her books is she also puts some suggestions in the back of things that you can do with your child. So some like active movement activities. So it's kind of fun for parents to have some ideas of ways they can.
Well, and if you are reading this multiple times, those suggestions probably come in pretty handy to sort of, mix it up a little bit and also show your toddler or your baby, like, we can enjoy this book a different way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I have a couple of other toddler books, that I have also read with babies, but are good with toddlers. Nancy Tefuri, she's not still writing, but her books have some great toddler things. So this one is called All Kinds of Kisses. Again, kind of like Rachel pointed out, nice big illustrations.
Yes.
Farm animals, which kids love.
Yes.
They get to make their noises.
Yes.
This also has some great vocabulary. Instead of just saying, the baby cow, it says the little calf. So we're learning the names of the baby animals on the farm as well. Again, this isn't one that has a plot, so you're able to flip through it. Don't read all the pages, read them all, whatever works for you and your child. The other great thing is, even with older kids, you can see there is some detail in the background.
Okay.
If they want to look more closely at things. We're going to see other animals that they've already seen. But it's not distracting when we have our main animal up here in the front. It's also fun. You can have them look for this bird. This bird is going to be on every page.
There you go.
So another way when you're reading it, let's look for the bird on every page, see if we can find it. So kind of making it interactive.
That's great.
National Geographic Kids has come out with little kids' first board books.
Okay.
These are great. Sometimes we think of board books as just being for babies. Mm-hmm. But this is a high interest for toddlers.
Okay.
I know some little boys who can just tell me everything about their big trucks. Nice. And so this would be a super engaging book. So it has simple text, nice, clear pictures, some vocabulary words.
Oh, yeah.
And even the little dot here is some more words or some more information the parent could share with their child. So not only are they getting the regular, but we can even add additional information.
Nice.
So this National Geographic Kids has some great board books about nature. I know we have one about pumpkin seed growing, about butterflies.
Nice.
So anything your child's interested in.
A variety of topics.
Yes, you could probably find something. So.
And if you grab a couple of those and one of them, they're not really interested in that topic, you just go to a different one.
Yep, you just go to a different one. That's the great thing about the library is you haven't spent any money. You come and find out what they like and take it home and see what they do with it. So.
And they can check out a bunch of books. I think it's up to 50 with their card.
They sure can.
All right.
Yes.
I know we've gone home some days and I'm like, how are we going to read all these? Well, we will. Or if we don't, we'll bring them back and we'll try again later.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. She made a good point about board books not just being for babies. Okay. I will say they also aren't just for toddlers. They have started putting a lot of books out in board book format that really actually aren't great books for babies or toddlers.
Okay.
So just to kind of give you a heads up, there are some that are definitely preschool level. So if you're looking at one and thinking, wow, should my toddler be into this? Is my toddler behind? The answer is probably no. That book is probably much more of a preschool level. It's just in that format.
You probably have some preschool books. Like, what kinds of things make it a preschool book?
Yeah. So preschool books start to get longer.
Okay.
They tend to have more of a plot.
Okay.
And they start to incorporate humor a lot of times. Toddlers don't quite get humor yet unless it's really in your face. But preschoolers start to get a little bit more of the humor.
Like the wonky donkey.
So we have a couple of those too.
You do?
Yeah. So this one is called The Cow Loves Cookies.
Oh, great.
Another thing that's great for preschool books is when you start incorporating some rhyming books.
Okay.
Because rhyming helps them hear the smaller sounds in words. And of course, later when you go to read, you need to be able to hear words broken down into smaller sounds. So rhyming is a great thing for preschool books. So this one is a rhyming one. And of course, you'll see lots of animals. Animals are always a big hit. This one, you'll start to see a little bit more humor in the pictures.
And there's a lot more words on the page, I'm seeing.
Yep, a lot more words on the page, a little bit more detail in the pictures. Like I said, some humor in the pictures that preschools will start to, think it's pretty funny that this cow's head is going in the window and he's trying to steal baby's cookies. Yep. Whereas a toddler might just be obsessed with the cow, depending on the kid. But yeah, I start to put a little bit more in there. Repeating phrases are still a really good thing for preschoolers. This one has "the cow loves cookies" repeated over and over again, so you can have them repeat that with you.
Nice.
And point to it. This is where I start to add in math. Okay. Preschoolers are going to, practice counting, so you could have them help you count the chickens.
Nice.
This one's a little too even, but sometimes, let's say if there was only 3 chickens on this page and then that many there, then that would be a good time to say which page has more chickens. Oh. When it's a big difference or a smaller group, they can start to do that in preschool.
Nice.
So just a really sweet story. There's some repetition, it repeats, he feeds the farmer hay, and then it repeats all of the things. So hay for horses, give those chickens chicken feed, corn for geese. But when it comes to cows, we know the cow loves cookies. But the kids can start to help you, remember, it's the hay for the horse then, because it keeps adding on to it as it goes. And like I said, they get more into the details in the pictures.
And then that addition, is that kind of fall under cognitive? They're remembering?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And being able to retell it themselves is a practice for narrative skills. So as they read it, they're going to start to know and be able to tell the order of the story.
Nice.
Which is important. And then speaking of the humor, we finally are at the stage where they might get that the duck loves quackers. So
that's cute. Yeah. And so this is The Cow Loves Cookies.
Cow Loves Cookies.
By Karma Wilson.
Yes. And Karma Wilson does a lot of rhyming books that are really fun for preschoolers. People might be familiar with the bear books, Bear Snores On. And those are also Karma Wilson. So.
All right.
And then this one is called Who Has These Feet? Another one that is great for, it's interactive and kids love to show off their knowledge. So who has these feet? Most preschoolers are probably going to get to the point where they're going to guess a polar bear.
Sure.
But then it's another one that has some fun facts on the bottom. So you can kind of read where your kid's at that day. If they're kind of a little bit antsy, then you can just read the polar bear has his feet and go to the next page.
Okay.
If they're really enjoying it, you can share some of the extra facts. What I like about this one is it does get a little bit trickier.
It does.
So for preschoolers, it's nice to have a little bit more of a challenge. They might not immediately know whose feet these are.
I have several ideas in my head.
Exactly, right? So then we have an ant has his feet.
That was one of the ideas.
Yep. And some kids are really much more drawn to nonfiction.
Okay.
So it's nice to have some ideas of nonfiction books to include. Some just really love all those facts.
Right.
And one thing to know is some of the preschool nonfiction is actually in our regular picture books and some is in the nonfiction. It's a very tricky thing to decide which way to go. So we have some in both places so that people can kind of find it just naturally when they're browsing. Or if there is a specific topic their kid's really into, they can also go into the nonfiction section and find stuff there. So,
and if somebody's like, oh, my child is really into polar bears or they're really into trucks right now, they could always go to the front desk and ask for some help to find books and say, this is how old they are. This is what we've been reading.
Yes.
And get that help.
Yes. And we can use the catalog to find those nonfiction books in the picture book area too. Nice. So they're just not all going to be in one section like they would be in nonfiction. Nice. So.
Yeah. And I have a couple of other ones to add, kind of talking about that repeated phrase that kids love to participate with you in. This is called Hooray for Hat. And not only do we have that repeated phrase, which is hooray for hat, but we're going to be talking about some emotions and some friendship, problem solving, which are some of those social emotional skills that are important. So we start out here with our elephant. When Elephant woke up, he was very grumpy. How do we know he's grumpy?
Right.
Oh, we can look at his mouth. can look at his eyes and eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
And also this big scribble on the top. Sometimes I feel that way when I'm grumpy. I just want to scribble with a black crayon. So talking about emotions, when have you felt grumpy?
Nice.
And then he gets this gift. And this is also fun because like we get to turn the book a different way, which makes it really fun and exciting. So he gets a hat and we yell, hooray for hat. He wants to go show his friends. But when he goes to his friend Zebra, we see, how's Zebra feeling?
Right. Well, the hat is lots of hats.
It is, which helps with our problem solving. His friend is grumpy. What can Elephant do to help him? He's going to share one of his hats with him. And then we're able to yell, hooray for hat, and see that big smile again. So, really helping with that social emotional learning, the emotions, how to help others, kind of, and see what we can do to help them.
And think about other people and be empathetic when how they're feeling because you felt that way before.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
And then the last book I have here is called Walter's Wonderful Web.
Oh, nice.
Tim Hopgood has several books that are great for preschoolers. One is about the five senses. One's about colors. This one is actually about shapes.
Okay.
Shapes and perseverance, which we also want children to learn. So poor Walter has trouble building his web because the wind always blows it away.
Okay.
And so then he's going to make another web. This time he's going to make it. And the kids love to tell you it's a triangle.
Okay.
And there's not only one triangle, but there's a whole bunch of triangles.
Right.
The wind comes, whoosh, we get to blow it away. But then he builds another web.
Right.
And so showing that even though it's hard, he's having a difficult time, he's trying again and again and again until he's able to do it. So, again, helping those children learn those social emotional skills of perseverance is so important when they're heading into school because they will be doing things that are new and difficult.
Yes.
And they will need to try again and know that it's okay. Try again. Okay. I'm going to use a different idea and try again.
Wow, that's amazing. And then the word whoosh is not a normal vocabulary word necessarily. So when you're kind of doing those whoosh or bam or like the sort of, what are those sounds? Like, what is that?
Onomatopoeia.
That's it. That was in my head, but I'm like, I don't know if that's the right word. Does that do anything for kids cognitively or those sort of fun?
I think it's another one where it's just playing with the sounds and the words.
And maybe could help them describe out in the world, like, it's windy. What does that sound like, maybe? Kind of have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to, zipper, I think is my favorite one to do with kids.
That's it.
Yes, and then we're really drawing out that Z part. And so then we can talk about that's the sound the letter Z makes.
Yeah.
So,
or snakes hissing.
Oh, snake, yep.
Oh my gosh, so much fun with language.
It is, yeah. And the more we can play with language and have fun with it, that, like Rachel said at the beginning, when they feel safe and loved is when they're really going to learn.
Right.
Versus sitting down and you're going to learn this. They won't learn it that way, but they will learn it when you're having fun with them.
Nice.
Do you have a green thumb? Are you new to gardening? No matter your skill level, every season is gardening season at the library. We have an extensive collection of gardening books and online resources that can plant the seeds for new ideas and help you cultivate your indoor and outdoor projects. We also have seed libraries. Our Take and Give seed libraries are currently accepting donations of vegetable, herb, and flower seeds. Bring your heirloom seeds into a library to share with other gardeners for spring planting. Learn more today at SCLD.org.
Well, gosh, thank you for sharing all the books and all that information. That's really great. The library does have an online reading challenge for these ages, 0 to kindergarten, and it's called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. And I've talked to a few people and mentioned this, and they're always surprised. And they're like, that sounds impossible. 1,000 books. How can my husband the other day, I was talking about this. He goes, how can you even do that? And I said, well, it's not as hard as it sounds, but can you guys go into that? Like, how can somebody get 1,000 books in before kindergarten? And how important is that?
Yeah, it's really important. Actually, 1,000 books before kindergarten is a national initiative.
Okay.
Because research has shown how important reading aloud is, because that adds language for the children. And the county library is part of that. Like you said, and it's a super straightforward, easy program. It is read a book to your child. Any book you want. It doesn't matter. To your infant, to your toddler, to your preschooler, and then record it.
Yeah.
So the goal is that 1,000 books before your child starts kindergarten. Like you said, that sounds like a lot. But if you read just one book a night or one book a day, you will have read 365 books in a year.
Oh, yeah.
Which is 730 books in 2 years, which is then 1,095 in 3 years. And there you have it.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, that little bit at a time, and that's another thing, children learn bits at a time.
Okay.
We can't dump 1,000 books on them in one day.
No, definitely not. There's no time, not enough time in the day.
But, you might think, well, I'm behind. I didn't start when my baby was little.
Right.
If you read 3 books a day, which often seems like a bedtime, it's 3 books.
Okay.
You could get done in less than a year.
Oh, yeah.
So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it does
make it seem easier.
It does. Makes it look easier. So the Spokane County Library District administers 1,000 books before kindergarten through an online program called Beanstack.
Okay.
So you can access that through our digital library or using the Beanstack app. And then you'll make an account, put in your library card information.
Yes.
And it will pull up our challenges for our library. And then you just simply record the books that you read.
Yeah.
And it can be any book that you want, and it can be the same book multiple times. So if you put on that training book that your child loves 20 times, that works.
That's 20.
You've read 20 books over that course, because we've, again, talked about how important that repetition is.
Right.
And then, take time to celebrate when you've read books. It can be fun and enjoyable to look back on all the things that you've read. And I think that's one thing that's fun about recording books.
Mm-hmm.
Can look back and see what we've read.
Nice.
Yeah. And to make it part, so we really want to make reading part of your everyday life.
Right.
It's your culture. You read every day. That's just something you do. And this is kind of a way to promote it, get it started, and then hopefully you will continue on reading aloud with your child.
Right. And this, I think, everything you guys have shared, and then also this reading challenge really emphasize how important reading is especially at these younger ages, and then also early elementary, is they're really rapidly gaining all these skills that you're talking about.
Yes.
And I love that you can count a book multiple times, because there's going to have their favorites, and you don't want it to just count once when you've read it, like you said, 20 times.
Yes.
I was reading an article the other day, and it was talking about the difference between kids who aren't read to and kids who are read to. And they estimate that there's like a 1 million word gap in terms of how many words kids hear between birth and when they start from kindergarten if they aren't read to versus if they are read to. And we need to hear these words in order to incorporate them.
Right.
And one of the things about books is they introduce vocabulary that we don't necessarily use in everyday language.
This is true.
So if you're thinking, well, I talk to my kid all the time, I don't have time to read, that's one good thing to keep in mind is how often in normal conversation with your kid would you start talking about a kangaroo?
Right.
Just naturally.
Or if you're not in construction, like a dump truck and rocks, and a truck has a bed. What has a bed in it? A truck and your room. And they're two different things. Like
Yes. So that is another thing about reading to your kid regularly is that you're introducing much wider vocabulary than you would otherwise. So that's part of why I love that 1,000 books before kindergarten, because it makes it a part of your everyday routine.
And if you're behind, I like the idea. If you're reading 2 and 3 books a day already, or you're starting to, you can catch up.
You most definitely
Yes.
catch up. Yes.
Nice. Well, thank you both for being here and sharing all this wonderful information, these wonderful books. I love that reading is a big part in kids getting ready for school, for kindergarten, and making them prepared for success.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.